Agent Carter, Episode 6, A Sin to Err. The name itself is actually intriguing. It's a reference to a nihilist cipher, an improvement on one actually, which was used by World War II era Russian cryptographers in spy rings operating in Japan, and I think it was Lithuania. It's actually pretty interesting. They would drop the last R off of the phrase "a sin to err." So you would get 8 letters at the top of this checkerboard that they would use to build the cipher. So ASINTOER, which are some pretty common letters in the English language. So this episode tonight for Agent Carter was definitely intriguing. It was action-packed, and there was a lot going on. I didn't get to review it the way I normally do, though, because of the immense amount of snow we've been getting in this area lately. My cable and internet are out. So for some reason, the digital converter box we have is working, but the Comcast large, X1 box, which never works, was not working again tonight, and we have no internet. So it was kind of fun watching the show like when I was a kid, and you can't pause it and go get a drink, and you can't rewind it and rewatch a scene, and I can't access my DVR, so I wasn't able to rewatch it at all. So it was sitting down at 9 o'clock, watching it straight through, taking whatever notes I can. Actually, my pen ran out of ink as well. It wasn't working at all, so I had to take notes on my phone. So lucky that I got anything to talk about tonight, but there's definitely a lot of good comments, and I feel like this episode, it was so good for me anyway that I'm glad I was able to overcome these personal obstacles to actually get a review. You'll notice my computer's off. Again, I don't have internet, so I don't know when I'm going to be able to upload this, hopefully at some point tonight, but it very well could be tomorrow. I may have to take it to a friend's house or something to upload it, somebody who has Verizon. So anyway, the episode begins with Dottie and another agent, and they are recruiting people into their program to join Leviathan. And I feel like it's strongly implied at this point. I know we already kind of confirmed this in the comments last week, but it's strongly implied that the Black Widow program / Red Room is obviously affiliated with Leviathan. And now we see Dottie, who knows what her real name is, recruiting people for Leviathan. And the other man with her says, if anyone wants to back out, just speak up, and just let us know. And this one guy says, I have a family, I have 4 daughters at home and a wife. And he says, you want to be with your family? And he cuts the guy's throat and says, we're going to go get his family so they can be together again soon. That is dark. That is tough right there. I mean, on a show that's supposed to be kind of fun, it's a Marvel Universe show, they just insinuated they're going to go kill 4 little girls. So Leviathan's pure evil. I mean, we already knew that, but that is even a step too far for me. That is uncomfortable, even to have that implied. So the monsters are real, and that's what Professor Ivchenko is alluding to. Now he's talking to Dooley at SSR. You might remember last week he was the psychiatrist who was working with that brilliant engineer and kept him grounded in reality. And this week I think we learned how he was able to keep him so grounded. It was, listen to the sound of my voice. But there's more to it than that, because he is wearing a very special ring. And we'll get to that in a little bit. So he's explaining that Stalin had a goal. He wanted better weapons. And one of the programs that he set up, apparently it's implied that Stalin was involved in setting up the Black Widow program. If not directly, then it was by his order. And Dooley says, why little girls? Why wouldn't they train men? Maybe it was Thompson. I forget who made the comment. But Ivchenko rightfully says that women are often overlooked and taken for granted. And isn't this entire show, the whole Agent Carter miniseries, about Peggy being overlooked and taken for granted and underestimated? So I thought that was great that they were already drawing a parallel between Peggy, a very strong, self-assured, powerful woman, and these Black Widows, these Mataharis, as they're being trained, are able to seduce a man and get information or get something from him. So It's implied later, almost pretty much confirmed that Dottie slept with Howard Stark and was able to get some kind of information from him. Maybe that's how Leviathan got those blueprints last week. It would make perfect sense that she was able to steal them out of his house or whatever. So we learned that, Dooley does respect Peggy now. She's making some recommendations about the investigation. He basically says, go ahead, do it the way you want to do it. And he's going to give her the free rein to actually, investigate this her way. And he's actually starting to listen to her a little bit, which is something he should have been doing all along. But at least now, Dooley is at least giving her the respect she deserves, though it will be short-lived. So Angie, who's apparently still on the show, is trying out to be an actress. A waitress trying to be an actress. Whoever heard of that? So she's doing a monologue for one of the customers there. It's actually from a play, I think it's called A Doll's House. And the monologue she's doing, it's about a woman who's treated very poorly by the men in her life. Again, we're keeping with that theme. So she's been trying to get all these different auditions, and Peggy's encouraging her, saying, your acting is great. And as it comes out, Angie's acting is going to get Peggy out of a jam in just a little bit. So Jarvis walks in, and it's no secret that they're meeting, even though they sit back to back in separate booths and talk. Angie knows. She says, "Oh, your friend's here." So Jarvis says, "I trust you're back on the team." And Peggy says, "I don't think we were ever on the same team," because, of course, Howard kept her in the dark, asked her for her help, but didn't give her any useful information, and didn't, allow her to be a partner with him in this, and lied to her. She does, however, confirm that they share a common goal and a common enemy, so she will continue to work with them. But we learn that when Jarvis met with Dooley last week, Dooley asked him about the Battle of Finau, and Jarvis is now telling Peggy that when Stark came back, he was very, very distressed, and it was at this time that he built his vault to keep all his most dangerous weapons out of the hands of people like the ones he met at Finau. We don't exactly know what happened then. We know he met a general with the army, so perhaps part of the reason he built this vault was not even just out of fear of the Russians, but out of his own government. So we learn a little bit more about that. Apparently, Peggy wants a list of all the women Howard Stark has been with in the last year. And my mind immediately went to, is there enough paper in New York? And they make the same joke that there's not enough ink. So she says, what about the last 6 months? She's assuming that one of the women he was with was a Black Widow. Maybe, she doesn't know Dottie yet, but we know maybe it could have been Dottie. And speaking of Dottie, she wants a job right across from the SSR, right across from that New York Bell Company building. She's applying to be a receptionist at a dentist's office. So in another scene that was a little tough, the dentist goes in and he's doing that 1940s guy thing that apparently every guy did back then. And he says, I need you to go the extra mile. And he puts his hand on her knee. Bad move anyway, but with Dottie, very bad move. She stuffs some kind of a cloth in his mouth, and it's heavily implied that she drills his eye out with the dentist drill. Either way, she kills him. And why does she want an office right across from SSR? She's setting up a sniper perch. So not only is she extremely skilled in hand-to-hand combat, of course weapons, she's also a sniper, in addition to being a great spy. So she is definitely a Renaissance woman, just much like Peggy Carter. So Sousa is still trying to confirm that the blonde in the picture is Peggy, so he actually goes to the prison and is interviewing the milk truck guy back from episode 2. The large gentleman who was kind of running down the street, and they stole the milk truck with all the nitramine in it. He confirms that it was Peggy. Sousa shows him a picture of Peggy, and he says that's definitely her. Of course, he's embarrassed that he got beat up by a girl. More on that later as well. But he does confirm it. So now Sousa's darkest fears are confirmed. He's got the 2 marks in her shoulder. He has an eyewitness saying that it was Peggy. So now he's got her. He knows. He doesn't want to admit it. But he knows, and now he has to take action on it. I think he wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt because, like we've discussed before, the 2 of them have really shared a lot in common. They have a similar sort of prejudice against them. of course, because women are in this culture not taken as seriously and not respected the way they should be, and of course, Sousa is not respected or taken seriously. He's underestimated because of his leg. So they Jarvis and Peggy learn that Howard Stark bought this diamond tennis bracelet for every single girl as sort of a parting gift, and we learn that Jarvis is the one who had to give him the kiss off. Apparently, Stark premature evacuates, and he leaves very early and leaves it up to Jarvis to deliver the bracelet and sort of deliver the kiss off. So Jarvis wants nothing to do with going to all these women's apartments because they're going to recognize him in particular. And there's a great montage. Peggy's looking at their wrists, trying to see if the cuff marks are there, because of course this woman, who they know is one of the Black Widows, is actually handcuffing her wrist to the bed, as we saw last week. So she's looking for those marks on her wrist, assuming that those marks would be there. And there's a great montage of Jarvis getting kicked and slapped by all these different women, and the poor guy. So Dooley and the Leviathan agent, although we don't know he's an agent yet, sorry, spoiler alert, Ivchenko, they're really commiserating together, and Dooley is opening up to him, and Ivchenko is getting him drunk, and making him drink one drink after another, and getting him to open up about his problems with his marriage and with his family, and Dooley's really telling him an awful lot. And one of the other newer agents is outside talking to Thompson, saying, how long has Dooley been in there with this guy? And Thompson's basically saying, hey, new guy, go make a pot of coffee, mind your own business. But he's damn right, because it's not like Dooley to sit in there with someone this long. And Ivchenko starts moving this little ring on his finger, and it makes this sort of humming sound. And he says, you need to focus on me. You need to concentrate. And he's basically using some sort of hypnosis on him. He wants to know where the lab is. There's something there that SSR has, some Stark tech that he is there to get. So we wonder at this point, what is his end game? What is he there to try to find? And is he actually working with Leviathan? So Dottie is across the street in the dentist's office, and she's taking aim. And at first I'm thinking, is she going to wait for Peggy to walk by, or is she there to kill Dooley? And she's taking aim at Ivchenko. And he's standing out the window, and he's looking out the window, just being the best target I've ever seen in my life. And she starts flashing a light at him. And it's Morse code, and he's kind of looking at it. And then he starts doing dots and dashes on the windowsill, communicating right back to her. And she, through the scope, can see this. So they're working together. So now it makes much more sense to me. Last week I'm thinking, why did the psychiatrist, who's best friends with this brilliant scientist engineer, why does he shoot him in the back? Now I know I was still confused about if he was doing some kind of a ploy or if he was actually selling out the SSR agents to try to save his own life. But either way, Ivchenko shoots him in the back. And it makes perfect sense because he was working with Leviathan. So it's highly possible that last week they actually let them escape, because the whole purpose was to try to get Ivchenko into SSR as like another sleeper agent, and to actually have him infiltrate them from the inside. So it kind of makes you think, was the whole thing a plan the whole time to lure SSR there to get Ivchenko back to New York, or did he just capitalize on an opportunity? I'd like to know what you think. So that was a great scene with them communicating back and forth. That was a scene where I'm on the edge of my seat and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was really, really clever. So what he says to Dottie is, need more time to find item, new directive, kill Peggy Carter. This raises two questions. What item and why kill Peggy Carter? The item, I'm assuming it's Steve Rogers' blood. If they could somehow synthesize that, they could make an army of super soldiers. But it's also possible that they're still looking for the Havoc reactor. They have the blueprint. Maybe they assume that there's actually a Havoc reactor there. If there was, I'm sure Stark would have wanted it out of there if there was a working reactor. This is apparently a weapon even more devastating than the nitramine bombs. But I'll definitely, I have some time for some speculation later on that. But why does he want to kill Peggy? I mean, it's clear that Peggy, just from the conversation at the beginning, knows most. She knows more than anyone else there, and she's the sharpest one. And I think he recognizes that she's the biggest threat. This is the time where I really wanted to rewind and watch that first scene again, but I couldn't. So I'm curious when my system's working again to actually go back and watch again and see what she said that he overheard that really made him think that she was a target. She knows, and she's purporting that Stark is not involved in this, and she's insistent that he's innocent. But why is that really a threat to Leviathan? I wasn't sure, so I'd like to know if you know the answer to that. Please do let me know. So Peggy and Jarvis, they find an empty apartment with mail all over the floor, and this person has evacuated. So Jarvis is standing outside pretending to be an exterminator, very unconvincingly, I might add. He says, I'm the exterminator. Someone saw a rat. And it's just, the kid who's watching him is not buying it. So he actually extorts money just without even a word out of Jarvis. Jarvis gives him a coin or something and tells him to go away. And he says, that he had to bribe the future mafioso there. So they find handcuff marks on the bed. And Jarvis correctly remarks that it's immensely disturbing, which it is. It's apparently a very hard habit to break. So they agree to meet at the Automat, and clearly this woman who lived there, I think they say she was a dancer. That's obviously Dottie. There's not another Black Widow. That would be a little silly. So obviously that's Dottie. And this is where it's heavily implied that she must have slept with Stark. So Ivchenko gets Dooley very drunk and hypnotizes him. I think this is the scene where he's really trying to get him to tell him more about where the tech is being held. And Sousa comes in and interrupts him at the last minute. Now Sousa is going to unfortunately tell Dooley that it's Peggy that they want. They have to issue a warrant and go after Peggy. So he interrupts him, and Dooley has the new guy sit with Ivchenko. Ivchenko pulls the exact same maneuver on the new guy, except this time it works because he's, I'd like to think weaker-willed, and he's not interrupted. So he finds out, where the lab is, how to get out of there quickly, and he tells him to go to his favorite bar, which I think is called Filth's Bar. What a terrible name for a bar. Have a bourbon and to savor, to really, really enjoy it, and then step out in front of a truck. A lot of disturbing things this episode. That was shocking as well. I thought he was just going to have him go walk to Jersey or something, cross the bridge. But he has him kill him, and now that obviously the only person who would know that Ivchenko was up to no good is dead. So that was very clever on his part, but I did not see that coming. I thought that was pretty shocking. And in the best scene of the episode, possibly the best scene in the series so far, at the Automat, Jarvis and Peggy notices that it's being cleared out, and she says that's where we're going to be under assault any minute. There's agents, there's an agent there, there's that agent, that agent. She says, Jarvis, go, block the door, make sure no one else comes in. And in a really amazing fight scene, well choreographed, good action, good timing, she takes out 3 or 4 or 5 agents, single-handedly because she's Peggy Carter. And she kicks a stool over to Jarvis, who blocks the door, and Jarvis hits someone in the face with the tray, and they escape out the back. And there's Thompson. And she is trying to convince him that she's innocent, but he's not going to hear it. So she takes the gun away from him. She knocks him out, goes around the corner, and there's Sousa pointing a gun right at her. And this is the scene we saw in the next episode last week, where it said next time. And he's got the gun pointed right at her, and she's under arrest. And she says to him, "You're not going to shoot me." And he says, "If you run, I'll know it's true." And she says, "I'm really sorry." There's no time to explain. She's got to get out of there. So Sousa, of course, doesn't shoot her in the back, lets her escape, and he can't exactly chase her. So she took out the entire task force on her own. which was really impressive. The action was really well done, and it was just a great scene. And the scene was actually juxtaposed with a song by Peggy Lee called A Good Day for Singing a Song, or just I think it's just called A Good Day. That's from 1947, so now that's another song by, another famous Peggy, which I thought was pretty clever on the producer's part. So she says to Jarvis, I've got to go back to the Griffith, and I've got to get Steve Rogers' blood. I don't know what she's going to do with it. Is she just keeping it for sentimental value, or is there a purpose behind it? I don't know. So Dooley is finding out that Peggy took out his entire squad. And, Dooley says, a woman took out like 6 agents, and yeah, she did. It's Peggy Carter. That's what she does. So he wants every, farmhouse, outhouse, henhouse, and doghouse search for her. He wants her picture up everywhere. He's going to bring her in no matter what. So Thompson and Sousa are kind of commiserating that they both let her get away, and neither one of them had a good performance there. And Thompson, back to his old trick, says to Sousa, come on, crutch faster, because he's holding them up. And, Sousa, for what it's worth, is really quick on that crutch. Did anybody notice that? He's really fast on it, doing his best to overcome his, supposed weakness. So Dooley, this is when Dooley leaves the doctor with the new guy and hypnotizes him, and he has that bourbon and steps in front of the truck. Great scene, disturbing, but great scene. And Thompson and Sousa correctly go to the Griffith to try to find Peggy. And they come face to face with Miriam. And I would have enjoyed it a little more if Miriam was actually able to stop them. But she's very annoying, and she does her best to slow them down. She says there's no men above the first floor. And they go up to her apartment, and of course she's gone. She stepped out on the balcony. She got the blood, steps out on the balcony. And she's waiting. That's another scene from last week. I remember seeing her on the balcony, and I'm thinking, what is she doing out there? Why is she out there? And how's she going to get out of this one? And she goes next door to Angie's apartment, and she covers for her. And she does this great story about how, her grandmother's sick, or Peggy's grandmother's sick, and it's so sweet, and she's crying, and she's really putting those acting chops to work. And Thompson, says, well, he has a gam too. So, he's being understanding, and of course her crying, they just want her to stop, just whatever they can do to get her to stop crying. And it gives Peggy a chance to come back into her apartment and sneak away, but through the front door, which was, hide under the bed for a few hours or something, climb down the fire escape at night, but she walks right out the front door, runs into Dottie. Peggy sees Dottie, and she kisses her. Dottie kisses Peggy, and she says, is that my brand? And she must have poisoned the lipstick, because Peggy starts getting very drowsy and passes out. And as she does, she sees the marks on Dottie's wrist. So now she knows that it's Dottie they've been looking for the whole time. But she's too drowsy to say anything, and they come and get her, and Dottie puts on a big performance. As Susan and Thompson come around the corner, sees her on the ground. Dottie was about to cut her throat, but she's interrupted. And she says, oh my God, she passed out. Should I call an ambulance? And she goes right back to sweet little Dottie from Iowa. Right on a dime. And real sociopath, that one, right? So they take her back, they cuff her, and I think it's Susan says, is that really necessary? And yes, it is really necessary. She'll fight her way out of the car if you don't. So they take her back, and Dottie missed her chance to kill her. I forgot to mention that Angie, when she was talking to Thompson and Sousa, remarked that she was just complaining about her fathead male coworkers at the telephone company, which I thought was a cute shot at them. So Miriam says, I could no more stop her than I could stop Laurence Olivier for the acting, because it was so excellent. She's such an excellent actress. I thought that was a good line too. So why the hell does Peggy walk right out her door? They're not even out of the building yet. I thought that was a little plot hole there. That was a little weakness to the script. I think she should have stayed on that balcony for a little longer, or come in and hidden under Angie's bed, or done something other than just walk out. Maybe she was going to try to sneak out the back door. I'll give her that. I'll pretend that's what she was going to do. So this is going to be the gossip of the Griffith in a place that's already, quite prone to gossip. This is going to do it for the week. They're going to be talking about this for a while, seeing Peggy Carter carted out of the Griffith in handcuffs. That the hens will be a clucking on that one. So Angie later goes up and knocks on Dottie's door and says, hey, Iowa, you got to come down because Miriam wants everybody downstairs for dinner. She doesn't answer, so she goes in, and the place is cleared out just like the previous apartment that she was at. So she's gone. She knows her cover's blown. She knows the minute Peggy wakes up, but as soon as she can get the message across that they're going to come back and look for Dottie, assuming that they'd even take anything she says seriously at this point, because now she's being interrogated. And Dooley says, don't go easy on her. And now it's just Sousa and Peggy in the room. Why wouldn't Dooley want to be there? But he's letting Sousa do the interrogation, but you'd think that Dooley would want to be in there. So that's where we leave off, and I thought tonight's episode was excellent. I thought there was a lot of great suspense, there was good action, and it's starting to snowball. Of course, there's only 2 episodes left in the miniseries, so now we are building towards the end. We need to still clear Howard Stark's name. We need to find out, what's Leviathan's end goal? What is this Havoc reactor they're trying to build? Is that what they're looking for? Or do they just have the blueprint? What is Ivchenko trying to find there in the lab exactly? Did he even know Steve Rogers' blood was there? I kind of doubt it. I don't think so, because it was just some kind of like a blackout bomb. So I don't think, now that I'm thinking about it, that they would even know to look for that. So it's got to be something we don't know about yet, or perhaps there is a working Havoc reactor there. I'm not sure. I might have missed something at some point about that. So next week is Snafu, and like I said, there's only 2 more. And the original episodes, they seem so quaint with the nitramine bombs and the voiceless ones and Leet Brannis and the man in the green suit. I thought Green Suit was going to be the main antagonist this whole show, as I've said before. I'm a little disappointed to see him go. But that he's not back. It would be nice if they could have brought him back. But I think Dottie is more than enough for Peggy and the SSR to contend with. And next week, looking at the coming attractions, she's going full on commando. She's wearing some kind of new like suit with red highlights, and she looks very badass. So I'm looking forward to a confrontation next week. Interesting side note: I was looking up Havoc Reactor to see if there was something in the comics, if this was something that was talked about in the Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos comics or something from that time period. And what came up was that Reactor is actually animation software by the company Havoc. So Havoc Reactor is an animation program. It's actually a physics engine for an animation program, which I wonder if that's where they got the name. And I still think that it's a prototype of the arc reactor, which would be obviously something that Leviathan could do a lot of harm with. So next week for Snafu, looking forward to it. Looking forward to your comments. Please let me know what you thought, and we will see you next week for Snafu. Thanks very much. Just one other thing before I forget. But I think that Dorothy Underwood is going to become very important. But I bet you that's Dorothy Underwood, who killed Kosminski and who killed the witness. So, you heard it here first.